When I tell you I am shaking, I am infuriated. I just watched a news article about 15-year-old Savannah Grazano. If you do not know her story, last week, her father, Anthony Grazano, kidnapped her, killed this little girl's mother, proceeded to take them on a 45-mile police chase on the interstate. And as the police chase was coming to a halt, like any other fucking 15-year-old girl that is scared, that is a victim, that is a suspect, when gunfire has stopped, what do you think you would do? I don't care if you're a teenage girl or adult, whoever you are, if you're in danger and you see the police officers thinking that they're trying to save you, what is your natural instincts? To run towards them, right? Because you're afraid. And they're supposed to be symbols of hope and symbols of safety. The car stopped, the gunfire stopped, and this 15-year-old girl runs towards the cops for help. And they shoot her dead. And for 3 minutes and 45 seconds, I watched the sheriff get on the podium to speak to thousands of people, to speak to his entire town, to speak to the state, to the country of United States. And instead of it taking accountability for the officers not being trained properly, for the officers messing up, for 3 minutes and 45 seconds, this officer sat on television, live television, and proceeded to tell the world how everything Savannah did caused her to be shot. Now, if you don't know the story, Anthony Grazano, her father, killed Savannah Grazano's mother that morning. He proceeded to go kidnap her, Savannah Grazano, and then take her on the police chase. Between that kidnap hostage situation, he put armored clothes on Savannah. The sheriff proceeded to tell us that because of the armored clothes, they presumed that Savannah was a grown man, aka her father, and her running towards them made them think she was a threat. Remind you, Savannah did not have a weapon in her hand. She's 15. If you've seen pictures of her, she is extremely small. She's she's a little girl. She's a teenage girl. She's small. She's petite. She has long, beautiful brown hair. Her father has a buzz cut. Her father is fat. Her father is damn near over 200 pounds. I don't care how much tactical gear this girl had on. There's not enough tactical gear to make this 110-pound girl resemble a grown-ass man. And even if it did, like I said, she had long hair down to her back. Everything about her screams very feminine if you look at her photos. So he proceeds to say, the sheriff proceeds to say that Savannah should have stayed in the car. Savannah should have never ran towards the cops during gunfire, which the gunfire had stopped. That is very normal. I don't know how many high-risk hostage situations you have ever seen. But usually when the gunfire stops and the victim knows it's safe to go to the cops, that's when they run, which she did. They said she should have never worn the combat gear that her father put her in. They made it seem like she's just walking around here with combat gear on. What gets me is cops are sworn in to protect the community, to be one for the community, and also protect themselves. The whole point of the badge is to be for the people. And I've never, in the entirety of me living, watched human beings lose remorse, lose empathy, lose compassion. This 15-year-old girl was murdered after being kidnapped and forced to go on a police chase with her deranged father. The same little girl that thought she finally had a second chance at life because the officers were there to save her, killed her. And instead of taking accountability and saying, hey, we messed up, we took the shot, we assumed it was her father, they put their heads together to spin it, to make it seem, how can we make her death seem like the reason she died? I proceed to go on to ABC, USA Today, and New York Post. These are all newspaper companies that hold extreme credibility. Every single last one of these places, thousands of people go to every single day for their news, for information. When you search up Savannah Graziano name, their articles are the first ones to pop up. The officers messed up so much that they proceeded to tell these newspaper companies that the reason Savannah was shot was because she was shooting back at them. They proceeded to tell another newspaper company that when Anthony Graziano killed Savannah Graziano's mother, she was there with him and she did nothing to stop the murder of her mother. Within the next line, the officers then confess that Savannah Graziano was not there when her mother was murdered. And Anthony, in fact, picked her up after the killing of her mother. In another newspaper article, they said, actually, we don't know if Anthony Graziano shot Savannah or the police shot Savannah. Completely trying to spin the story so they don't have to take accountability for any of it. This made me think of the Oscar Grant story, the Trayvon Martin story, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. It made me think about every story in history where officers have done wrong, have deliberately went off the book. For example, look at the Oscar Grant situation. The officer said, I didn't know my taser from my gun, so that's what led me to killing him. It was a complete accident. I didn't realize I had my gun in my hand instead of my taser. George Floyd, officer completely disregarded his screams of life, his screams to breathe, and then proceeded to say after this man's murder, I didn't realize I was pushing on him as hard as I was. And also proceeded to tell us this would have never happened if he didn't resist. Savannah Graziano, a girl that was, she was a victim, a girl that was kidnapped by her father, finally in the situation where she can be saved, gets shot by the same people there to save her. And then in her death, have those people go on live TV to thousands of fucking people and have them say to us as a community in nice fucking words, she was killed by her own actions. And what gets me is when these scenarios keep fucking happening every single day in our community, instead of providing empathy and compassion to these family members, cops put their heads together to save their ass. How can we spin it to justify the way we killed this person? And then the only way they make victims' families feel good is, oh, hey guys, we put so-and-so officer on suspension. Not only are they on suspension, but they're getting paid. So it's really like, hey, just go on vacation And when people forget about the shit you've done, we'll bring you back on the force. What I think and how I truly feel if you are an officer and you mean you want to be here for the people, and you mean you love your job, and this is something that you genuinely want to do and you want to be perfect at, if situations like this happen, I think every officer should be stripped of their badge, and there needs to be some type of program or unit made strictly for officers that have fucked up so bad. And they need to go through not only the academy again to get their badge reinstated, but also they need to have 10 times more work on their gun handling skills, on their mental evaluations for themselves, and also when it comes to being out in public and talking to suspects. They need to have training for within the community, rational thinking, etc. But everybody knows if this was put in place, officers aren't going to do this. You know why? Because you hide behind the power of your fucking badge. You hide behind the power and the complacency of being under an umbrella of authority. That if this was a requirement of you going back to the police academy and getting training of you being re-enlisted, you know they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't allow that. Now, don't get it twisted. I know there are good cops out there. I've met them. I've sat down and ate dinner with them. I've had plenty of encounters with good cops, with great cops that go by the book, that make sure everything they do is documented, make sure everything they do is ethical. So I'm not dismissing y'all. But what disgusts me is at the end of the day, when one of your officers are down, there's no one in the department to tell them like, yo, you got to bite that bullet. You got to take accountability for yourself. Y'all are so fucking afraid of the lawsuits that are coming your way, of the potential jail time, of suspensions and shit like that, that you don't even realize that's exactly what you need. Yes, you deserve to be sued. You deserve to go to jail. You deserve to be treated just like anybody else if they would have caused the same crime. How are you one for the people, but when it's time to actually be the fucking people, you're a fucking coward? You're a narcissist. How are you supposed to protect us and serve us if you can't even realize you have committed murder upon us? If you don't even care that you killed one of us. That girl is 15. 15, a life ahead of her. And I've read news articles portraying as if she was a shooter. I've read news articles making her seem out to be that she was there for her mother's murder and didn't help. Not only does the police department need to be sued, but these news companies need to be sued. And y'all need to go to jail. Because Savannah Graziano is not the only girl that this is happening to. This is happening every single fucking day, everywhere. And the stories pop up on the news for maybe 5 seconds, and then they disappear within the day. And so when you see situations like this happen, you don't even really comprehend it because there's so much shit going on in the world that you can't even realize what the police department did to this girl. You can't even realize what the police department did to these people, or you don't even care. And they know that. Listen to me. The police department knew if we get the sheriff to stand at the podium and say some nice words that kind of make sense, this news story will blow over. The crazy fucking thing about all this is, in every single news article and police report, there is said that there's footage from neighboring Ring cameras that Savannah Graziano was in the truck when Anthony killed her mother, right? And they said she sat in the back of the truck and didn't do anything. But within the next line, they proceeded to say they would not be releasing the footage. Now, I don't know if you're dumb or if you're stupid, but when has the police decided to withhold footage that would make them look good? Please tell me, when has the police ever decided to withhold footage that made them look good in the scenario? You know why? Because there's no fucking footage. The girl was never there. She was kidnapped hours later. But the officers put out there into the media that she was, and then proceeded to say, we saw her shooting us, which caused us to shoot her. But then in another article proceeded to say when she got out the car, she had no weapons in her hand or on her. She only had the vest and the armored clothing. So which one is it? And then to buckle down on that, the officers proceeded to say, we actually think the dad was the one that shot and killed her, not us. But in another article, y'all confessed in shooting and killing her. This is fucking sick. This girl's a teenager. A fucking teenager. And now for the rest of her life, do you not understand that? For the rest of her legacy, people are going to be questioning, was she a shooter or was she not a shooter? Was she a part of the killing of her mother or was she not? And y'all are okay with having that narrative fly. Like y'all are genuinely okay with having the narrative of a 15-year-old girl being associated with the murder of her own mother and the shooting of police officers, instead of having it be what it was. She was a victim of a kidnapping. She was a fucking hostage, and she waited until the gunfire stopped to run to you for safety, and you shot her. That's what it is. Point blank, period. But y'all sit in the departments and y'all say, okay, how can we make it seem as if she was killed justifiably? And now this girl's gone 6 feet under because a cop couldn't take a second to realize that instead of a 230-pound buzz-cut man running towards them, it was actually a 110-pound long-haired teenage girl running towards them. And what pisses me off is that when officers are questioned about the actions they've made, they always love to use the excuse of, you don't understand. You weren't there. You aren't in my shoes. It's different when you're in the situation. And I'll give you that. It is different when you're in a situation where you're getting shot at or when you're in dangerous scenarios. I completely understand that. But the difference between you and I as a civilian is that you're trained to be shot at. You're trained to be put in situations where you have to think on your feet, where you have to remain calm, where you have to assess the situation. You are literally trained for this, for multiple hours every single day in academy, and also put to the test when you're out on the field. I truly feel like officers use that statement of, you don't understand unless you're in it, to not take accountability for the shit they've done. Me as a civilian, I understand if I was in a shootout with somebody, I would have the urge to just shoot because of fear, because I'm afraid. But if you're professionally trained for this, you should know not to act the same as if a civilian would act. You have to have a different mindset than a civilian. That's what makes you who the fuck you are. But every single damn day, with every new victim, every new scenario. Y'all keep showing us as a society that it comes down to you being afraid, that it comes down to the actions you made were out of fear, were out of lack of knowledge, were out of ignorance. And you like to blame it on that. There's a lot of situations you could blame that on. But when it comes to taking innocent people's lives, when do you stop and say, yo, I fucked up. I did that. But y'all, all of y'all fucking just shaking y'all boots. You shaking your boots, wondering, fuck, I'm about to go to jail. I'm going to have a lawsuit. I'm going to have this. Like I said, if you're for the people, you need to be treated as if you are the people. If I go out here and I shoot somebody and the consequence is me going to jail or me getting sued or me having to go through some type of program, then that should be the same for you. You should not be protected behind a badge, behind an umbrella of authority. You should not be protected behind a department. If you fuck up and kill somebody innocent, you need to be able to take that. You need to be able to handle that. The problem is y'all walk around behind a shield of ego. And that fucking ego is causing y'all to fuck up. It's causing y'all to kill these people because you think you're untouchable. You think you're safe. You know how the news outlet works. You know how social media works. So even if you fuck up, you know that people are willing to let things just slide by. You know people are going to forget eventually. But y'all need to start taking accountability. And we as civilians, as a society, need to start holding them accountable for their actions. Because as of today, that little girl is being portrayed in the media as a killer. That little girl is being portrayed as somebody that helped kill her mother and shot at the police, and not as a victim like she was. And this is going to happen every single day if we do not start marching up to these police officers, to these buildings, and making them take accountability for the shit they're doing, for the message they're portraying. And for the news companies out there that are reporting these stories, you have to realize y'all have power. Like I said, when I searched up her story, the top 3 articles were of some of the biggest companies out there in the world. And she was portrayed in 3 different ways in 3 different companies. You have to realize what you're writing isn't for something that is going to be here for a day. Your news articles, your stories, they are here for a lifetime, whether if you think about it or not. In 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, somebody can look up this Savannah Graziano's story, and you will be the first person they'll see of her being portrayed as X, Y, and Z. The words you put down on these websites, on these papers, matter. It's important. It determines how a civilian sees a suspect and a victim. It determines if somebody has sympathy or not. So stop reporting before you have the right information. Report when the story is complete. Report when everything is laid out. Because right now, if I didn't know the real story, I would just think this little girl was on a shooting spree with her father. Y'all got to start taking accountability for yourselves. Because if you don't, it's going to mean life and death for millions of people out there.